We lost. We barely put up a fight. They came from our greatest invention. I watched from Mars with my family. I must have been one of the first to see it happen. I was working out in my garden at the time. The Waygate, the portal that connects so many of our worlds together, the blinding gold that normally emanated from it just turned black. That's not even quite right. It didn't turn black because around it was space. It was endless darkness. But in the center of our massive gate was just void. It was less than the absence of nothing. To call it black would be like calling a night sky gray. It doesn't make any sense to explain because it didn't make any sense to see. I think that's why we all just stared at it. It was impossible. Then the mass grew. It was like this grotesque bubble reaching out, expanding towards Earth. I'm not a physicist, but the rate that it grew out there in space, I don't think it was possible. But nothing about the whole situation was, and that's when most started to scream and run. My memory is a little blurry after that. Alarms, sirens, yelling, being pulled by one authority or another to this place or that. Sneaking glimpses at the sky whenever I could seemed to be the only will of my own that I had. Whatever it was, just kept flooding out of the gate. Some thought it was a fluid, but I knew it wasn't. The way they blocked out the stars behind them, the way those little specks of hope flickered before going out, being completely smothered by it, it just made me feel... It made me feel like we were reaping what we sowed. I know that doesn't make any sense. And maybe I'm just projecting. I've lived an easy life after all. And maybe I never really felt I deserved it. We were rushed into a bunker. More of a storage room under one of the colony granaries than a bunker. Hundreds of us all huddled together. People whispering to each other questions that no one could answer. Then we heard gunfire outside. Conventional weaponry. Probably didn't do a damn thing. And then the shooting stopped. After that they got in. Cut through the steel with their claws like it was paper. And they didn't do it slow either. They ripped the metal apart and just came inside. I ran. I left my family, I left everyone I knew, and I just ran. I knew the granary, I knew a way out. I climbed up a ladder, and when I looked back, it was like I was looking into a blender. I got out, though. The dome was breached. I couldn't go outside, but the greenhouse had some oxygen in it, and well, as you can tell from my hypoxic ramblings, I survived a little while. Long enough to watch the Earth get completely consumed. I doubt anyone out there can even see the sun, if anyone is out there at all. I have no idea if this recording is ever going to be found, but if it is, I guess I won't suffocate. Welcome to the Void, everyone. What you just heard was a short story from one person's account of the final hours of humanity's great civilization ending some 200 years in our future, within the setting of Voidborne. In simplest terms, Voidborne is a tabletop game and book series that I am creating. My goal is to form a science fiction setting that any and all can easily expand upon with their own creations and make stories within. The goal of this channel is to expose as many people as possible to this universe, and hopefully gain some traction for the future books and games and everything that goes into the setting in general, in order to have it grow. If you are interested in science fiction stories, if you have written tales of your own within universes of various sci-fi media properties, if you want to be on the ground floor of a new and developing universe, I would love for you to stick around. to subscribe, as they say, and watch on. Now, enough puttering about. Let's learn a little bit about the Void. Voidborne itself takes place 1,000 years after the tragic fall of humanity. 1,000 years after the events of that little short story you heard at the beginning. Most of us were wiped out, plain and clear. But not all. You see, the Voidborne, the horrific monsters that seemed to ignore the very rules of reality and physics that enacted that sudden and brutal genocide against humanity, disappeared after they thought their work was done. But not all of us died. Some fled into the wilderness upon alien planets, abandoning their colonies. Others went into deep cryogenic sleep in the deep of mantles of planets and the hearts of asteroids. It is these humans, or their descendants, that would later awake into a galaxy that was no longer theirs. You see, when humanity reached for the stars, they made a terribly sad discovery. We were, in actuality, alone. There were animals and plant life and things in between that are hard to classify, but what there was not was true, sentient, intelligent life. There was no ancient civilization, nor any ruins of one anywhere. There were no friendly aliens with marvelous technology to greet us onto the galactic stage, nor were there little green men with ray guns waiting to subjugate us. We were the only true intelligent beings, and that struck a chord with humanity as a society, especially as impossible psionic abilities began to manifest within our populations. For what does that mean? What does that prove? Why were we alone? What does it mean that we can do such things? And what were we supposed to do next in a seemingly empty universe? A galaxy, at the very least. These questions were being explored internally, just as the galaxy itself was being explored externally. And it was certainly being explored thoroughly. For while no ship can travel faster than light, we found a way around that. We launched construction probes at the speed of light to distant stars, and upon reaching their destination, they would dismantle what they could in order to build our greatest inventions, the waygates. These titanic golden rings allowed for nearly instant interdimensional travel, meaning humanity can jump between distant stars over the course of mere days. The galaxy was only truly beginning to be explored when the Voidborne came through those very same gates and put an end to our exploration and our civilization at large. But millions upon millions of those autonomous probes were sent out before our fall, and when we would arise 1,000 years later, those probes commanded to build those gates would have finished their tasks. I already mentioned that the galaxy was no longer ours, but that isn't because an alien species rose in our absence. Not quite. You see, when it became obvious that the galaxy wasn't teeming with intelligent life, one group and one controversial scientist sought to put an end to that, believing that not only was humanity ethically correct to uplift various alien species, tinkering with their DNA, but they were actually morally obligated to. These ideas caused quite a stir before humanity's fall, but the leader of the efforts, a scientist named Talia Vrac, believed that if this uplifting of sentience and intelligence was done right, then humanity would have allies, friends, cooperators amongst the stars, and that we would not be limited to our own understandings, our own biases and beliefs. Unfortunately for her, at least, the uplifting did not go as she envisioned, for, as you know, we fell. And in our wake, we left these 4 infant species to grow in our ruins without our guidance, for better or worse. The first of these species were the Bractians, the ones Talia toyed with and who were essentially an early proof of concept. Humanoid avian beings that have strong familial ties and adherence to their cultures and traditions. They are the least numerous of these children species, for they were trapped upon Talia's space station, a world tree
being hunted by the remnants of the Voidborne that were left behind by their greater collective. The second were the Arok, man-sized insectoid individuals who had constructed great infrastructure and had decent command over their homeworld. They waged war against each other and built massive towers that would put even the largest termite mounds of Earth to shame. It was argued they may one day achieve sentience on their own, but all information pointed to the contrary, that they have been stagnant for millions upon millions of years. They were the first to reach the stars after humanity's fall, maintaining their almost medieval aesthetic, even once grasping at the void. The third were the Aquitarians, an obviously aquatic group. Before their DNA was manipulated, they would never be able to breathe air or walk upon land. But once they were more human than most, individualistic and colorful in all ways that mattered. When the galaxy became smaller, and the children species of humanity met with one another, members of the Aquitarian species often found themselves as mediators in these conflicts. Finally, there were the strange arboreals. They should not have succeeded. Their biology was far, far more different than anything humanity has ever seen, as they appeared to be a combination of flora and fauna, plant life and animal life, and yet we were able to warp what was once moving plants that chase the sun around their planets into a mostly humanoid package. It was the work of an isolated and determined team of Talia and their later creations that allowed the arboreals to rise to sentience. The arboreals are some of the most forward-moving beings in all of the galaxy, something that can be good or horrible depending on the mindset and beliefs of that individual. There is one more, the mechanicals. Humanity never truly got artificial intelligence quite right. It was always missing a spark, a soul. We created avatar suits that used the same technology that the Waygates relied upon to be able to pilot these machines from anywhere in the galaxy almost instantly. When humanity was destroyed, these shells, as they were, that once contained spirits, remained hollow. For a time. Little was known how exactly, but eventually they too woke up throughout the cosmos, but especially upon a massive ring installation in deep space. It is there where this new consciousness of machine beings, each individualistic in their own way, debated their sudden life and intelligence, and what it even meant. It is there where the Waygates were reactivated after being turned off during humanity's collapse, and it was there where the decision to bring humanity's children species together was made, to turn on those great teleporters and also to wake up humanity wherever they could. This was only scratching the surface of all that I have created, and there's plenty more on its way. If you have found this entertaining or interesting, stick around. There is so much more to come.